What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the live stream. I told you I'll be back on Tuesday nights. I really want to get make Tuesday nights live stream a destination. So tonight on the Blerding While Dad live stream, I got a couple of things. Let me go ahead and get Instagram up and running here. All right, Instagram's on. So on today's episode, we'll talk about hate watching One Piece, kind of grudge watching One Piece. Um, and a couple of other things, some hip hop stuff, some dad stuff. I really hope that y'all join in this conversation. Um, you know, it's been a long week and it's only Tuesday. It's a byproduct of what's going on in the White House. All right, so I'm going to roll the intro and get to y'all after that. All right, welcome back to the live stream. I did the live stream on Thursday. I really want to make Tuesday nights my night because I think that's really the only night I don't have anything going on for right now. And so I wanted to make Tuesday night the live stream night. I wanted to do something for myself because I do a lot of live streams and stuff for businesses, for business ventures and things like that I'm trying to launch. And I kind of drifted away from the stuff that actually gives me peace. Um, this nerd stuff is kind of my center. It's always been kind of my refuge from the outside world. Always started out in comic books, but even growing up was comic books, um, movies, sci-fi, books. Like I was a huge Michael Crichton fan. Um, Sphere, Jurassic Park, Congo, read all of them. The Terminal Man. Like I've always been into, kind of escapist fantasy and whatnot. And so my nerd interests are varied. As I get older, I'm dropping some, I'm picking some up. It's really been hard because I'm a comic book nerd. That's my stock and trade. I have not had the time or the money, um, but mostly the time to hit up comic book movies as they come out. There used to be kind of a ritual with me and my friends. We would see new comic book movies whenever they dropped, and life got to us. I used to be able to collect more and read more as things dropped. And so I feel like I'm always about a month or two behind what's going on in the major books. So I'm trying to get back to that world where I can track that kind of stuff and bring it to you. So on tonight's live stream, I got a couple of different things that I wanna discuss here. Okay. So we're having a mix. Right now, we're gonna talk about getting burned out on an anime, some cultural whiplash, tourist energy and hip hop, and some real life dad reflections. I'm not an expert, I'm just a dude thinking out loud with y'all. Okay. Before y'all come for me. um Jump in the chat if you guys want to pop in. I'm always open. I always want to have those conversations. I like actually having these conversations real time. I really do want y'all in the chat if you can. So we're going to jump into it. All right. So my daughter is going to kill me for this. I hate One Piece. And I'm trying, y'all. So on Saturday nights, it's kind of the ritual in my house that we get together and watch Toonami. My son used to join us, but he kind of dropped off. I think it had to do with some of the depressing ass animes that my daughter was really, really uh, kind of forcing us all to endure, like Promise Neverland. I thought Promise Neverland was really, really dark. And then I saw Made in Abyss. And I think my son kind of checked out after Made in Abyss because if you're not familiar, Made in Abyss has the cutest little anime big-eyed kids that you've ever seen. Like the cutest little children. And what happens to those children through the course of this dark, dark, dark show is astonishing and depressing. And so we had this ritual where we'd watch Toonami on Saturday nights. That was kind of our thing. We'd all get together, 11 o'clock rolls around, we're watching Toonami. It used to be the whole family. When Made in Abyss started, my son kind of gave his piece out and said, I'm not watching this. This is sad. This is depressing. My daughter's all for the super sad animes. Like she loves those things. When my wife's doing her hair, she will find the most depressing, darkest, bleakest anime and just watch it and weep uncontrollably. I don't know if it's a guy thing where I don't understand it. I don't like sad movies. I don't like sad shows. I don't like sad anything. But that's what they do. And so that's what she's into. And so we started watching Made in Abyss, and my son's like, you know what? I'd rather be in my room. I don't want to watch this. And so, um, and so through Toonami, we've been introduced to a lot of different properties. Now, I've been aware of One Piece. I'm not that old. Um, I know that, when I was in, high school and college, really, it was kind of a daily show that came on every day. I never paid much attention to it until I started watching it on Toonami. And I had to see what the hype is about because I know in some circles it's considered the big three or one of the essential animes that you got to watch. Um, my daughter bought the books, um, the manga, and she tries to get me to read it. I've tried, and I just can't get into it. Um, and that's not normally a problem for me, but I just can't really get into the books. But anyway, sitting there watching this, and I know I mispronounced the books, so I'm just gonna call them the books right now because I can never say the word, and it's easy. Manga. I I can never say manga the right way because I always transpose the letters. I have a little bit of something in my brain where it flips letters and numbers around. So anyway, my daughter was trying to convince me that I need to be reading the books of One Piece because I've been complaining loudly about the show because I am trying my best. And it's bad when you're watching something that you don't really like, but you're invested in it. It's a really weird, feeling um, um, where things are out of place, where you're invested in something that you don't like. I'm invested in a show that I can't really stand. And there's a couple of different reasons why I don't like One Piece. Um, but I'm still invested in it. I'm still into it. And that's biting me in the ass right now. I'm gonna explain that in a second. Um, I think the animation's ugly. I think the character designs are ugly. Um, it's loud and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'm saying that as somebody I've been watching One Piece on Toonami um, for a couple of years now. This is so sad. This is so sad because I'm normally the person like, if you don't like it, stop watching it and don't complain about it. But I'm invested in the story. Like, I want to see what happens because I'm hoping that the anime catches up to where the anime is now because I've skipped ahead and watched some of the current stuff with uh, Luffy and Gear 5, and it looks really interesting. The animation's improved. It looks more visually coherent. Because right now, when I started watching it, I think we were in the Fishman Island arc, and that was really too much. It was just too much going on a nightly basis. And it was long. It was really long. And I thought Fishman Island was long. And then we go to like, I think it's Punk Hazard or wherever where they're chasing Caesar Clown, and that was even longer. Like, and I know that One Piece was made to like show an episode every single day, and so it's harder to watch one per week or two episodes a week because that's how Toonami does it. They used to do it where they have two episodes of One Piece back to back, and so it was meant to be watched daily. And so at most, I'm getting two episodes a week, and so it feels even longer. But whatever that arc was after Fishman Island on One Piece was long, like grueling long. And I had to listen to that Caesar clown laugh. And that's where I got invested. Like, I got invested in a show that I don't like. That's an ADHD, bro. Like, I can get obsessed about things that I don't like. And so I'm kind of obsessed. Like, I'm invested now. I got to see what the payoff is. And so the normal trend with One Piece is I'll sit there, I'll start an arc, And I'm like, God, this show is ugly and it's loud and it's confusing. And then at some point in that arc, I will get invested in the actual story to the point I just need to see how this ends. Like I need to see how this ends. And then by then, it's probably about a year later, the arc is wrapping up. Um, Punk Hazard Island or whatever that was after Fishman Island was just long for no reason. And then I'm like, okay, I survived what feels like the longest thing that I've ever watched. And then this Dressrosa or whatever you say, Dressrosa arc came up. So I've been watching that for almost a year and a half. Every Saturday night. It's kind of by myself now because my whole family is kind of like off of One Piece. But I watch this. I'm invested. I need to see what happens. And so I've been watching them with this Doflamingo stuff. I feel like he's been, the whole lead up. We spent 6 months actually running up to go fight Doflamingo. And like I said, this is 2 episodes of a show that's supposed to be aired every day. 2 episodes a week for a show that's supposed to be aired every day. I feel like it took about 4 to 6 months to get to Doflamingo. Another month to actually start fighting him. And then the fight has taken almost 2 months. Luffy and Doflamingo. And so I'm invested in this. I don't like it. I don't like the show. I'm just watching, hoping that I can catch it where the animation style finally shifts, and it actually looks like somebody cares about animating it, and the storyline starts making a little bit more sense. Because I know the later episodes, I know the current episodes are there. I'm waiting for them. I didn't have to go through this with Dragon Ball. I dealt with filler episodes in Dragon Ball. Like dealt with filler episodes in Dragon Ball. Dealt like even JoJo's Bizarre Adventure at its most unpleasant was still engaging to a degree. This is like a punch in the face every time I try watching it, but I have to see it. And so this is what my problem is. I invested the 6 to 8 months in this battle between Luffy and Doflamingo. And I know I'm butchering these names, bro. Like I know I'm butchering these names. Please don't come for me. And somewhere along the line, I missed an episode. I was either on the road traveling or something, or I fell asleep too early and I missed an episode. And the episode I missed was the episode where Luffy defeated Doflamingo and freed Dressrosa from him. And so now, last week, it was kind of the epilogue episode. And I was pissed off. I was shattered. I was upset because I feel like I invested all this time into something I don't like. And now it's over. And I missed the payoff. So now I have to go online and figure out, because I try not to spoil the arcs I'm currently watching. I will jump ahead, but I don't want to spoil the arcs I'm currently watching. I sat there for over a year, feels like 2, watching this arc just to see how they get out of it. And I missed an episode, and now I missed the climactic battle where Luffy defeats Doflamingo. And I'm sitting there like, why did I even do this? Like I'm mentally preparing myself for the next arc, and I know on the calendar it's going to be 4 weeks of filler episodes. This is what being a nerd brings you. You get obsessed with things that you don't like. And it's hard to not step out of it. I get it. I understand it. I understand and I hate it about myself. Because I could say I've done this. The last time I remember being so invested in something that I despise so much on a weekly basis. Well, there's 2 times. It was reading Kick-Ass 2. Oh, I despise that so much. I hated it so much. And the Boys comic. If you have not read the Boys comic, do not read the Boys comic. It is puerile. It is awful. It is one of the worst things I've ever laid eyes on. And it's not because of the writing or art or anything else. It's just awful. It's a negative experience. It's just ugh, just you just feel bad reading it. The show is infinitely better than the comic book. The comic book is not worth reading. That's the last time I was super invested because I read every single issue of The Boys because I got invested in it. I hated it. Every comic, like, God, this is worse than the last one. And I finally got to the end. I'm like, this. I'm finally done with this. I'm finished. I don't have to endure this anymore. And that's kind of One Piece ain't that negative yet, but it's kind of getting there. Hopefully something changes. My daughter's like, well, you need to read the books. The books are better. And to me, okay, here's the thing. It's crazy to look me square in my face and say, yeah, man, One Piece gets better after episode 600. That's a wild thing to say to somebody, bro. Like, yeah, man, you just got to endure those first 600 episodes, man. Once you get past that, man, it's a lot better. Whew. I need something to happen. I hope this filler arc is not too bad. Otherwise, I might drop this show completely and just give it a couple of years before I try to pick it back up on Toonami. Um, I'm really excited because Toonami's bringing some other things on that I kind of want to see. Was it Dan to Dan or Dan Dan or whatever? I want to check that out. I'm really interested to see how Steel Ball Run gets from JoJo. I want to see how that gets adapted. I hope it's not a Netflix original because I think Netflix kind of fumbled the ball with the last one. Just the way that they rolled it out with the last arc of JoJo with Stone Ocean. Um, I'm with Araki. I love Araki's style. I love the way he tells stories. I'm still a little bit mad at him about how Stone Ocean ended. I feel like it was kind of a cop out, but it is what it is. But I want to see what Steel Ball Run looks like animated. I'm really excited because I know it's coming. I just hope that it's not completely exclusive to Netflix. So that's that. The moral of the story is we gatekeep ourselves into staying in fandoms that we've outgrown. I haven't outgrown One Piece as much as it's grown on me, like a fungus. It's so ugly. It's so ugly. I don't know how y'all do this. I don't know how y'all did this. I'm just waiting for it to get better. And y'all keep telling me it gets better. And I know it gets better because I've seen the later episodes. I know it does get better, but man, this is absolutely brutal. What was it? I need to look it up now. How far am I from One Piece being good? How far am I from One Piece being good? Okay, so yeah, we've gone through about 100 episodes. So about 746. So when does One Piece get when does One Piece get good? Wow, that's really a search term, yo. Wow, they said it happened 700 episodes ago. That's pretty terrifying. Wow, that's tough. I'm in for some tough sailing here, I think, y'all. I'm really I almost want to I just want Toonami to skip ahead and get to where Luffy gets Gear 5 because I've seen the episodes where it gets Gear 5 and seen some of the battles and visually they make more sense to me. Like I think a lot of it has to do with visually One Piece doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's just the art style and it's just might be a personal thing. So y'all listen to me rant long enough about it. So the next thing I need to talk to is I need to talk about something a very specific phenomenon that I noticed in friend groups or whatnot. And so I need to discuss this, need to chop it up, and I don't want y'all to get offended, but you are anyway, because that's just the nature of the internet. So fuck it, whatever it is. So we need to talk about the white dude from high school that hung out with black folks and now is MAGA. And he spends time arguing with the black folks that he grew up with. There's somebody very narrowly specific in mind, but I know I'm not the only person that's experienced this. And it's not the one that was down by law. Like I'm talking about a white dude that started hanging around. He didn't necessarily, he kind of grew up around black folks, but not really. And he still hung out with other white folks and hung out with black folks. Is really kind of a weird phenomenon. But then there's also the down by law one where there was never any argument. I've experienced that, and I experienced it around election time. I had kind of my falling out, my point where I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done messing with you. Because normally it was we would have kind of spirited conversations or whatnot, and eventually it just started getting on my nerves because I'm like, oh, so all this black stuff was kind of an outfit, like it was a phase for you, right? Like you smoke weed, you listen to the Chronic, and Bone, and you was down for a minute, but then you got older and life happened, and so then you decided that you're going to go back to MAGA and also be a weird conspiracy theorist too. Like you have the weirdest, most malformed conspiracies that don't even make logical sense in your brain. Um, and you're just right leaning for the sense of right leaning, even though everything in your past says that you shouldn't be. Really weird phenomenon, but we're going to chop it up about him. Because I know I'm not the only one, because I've talked to people. I'm not the only one that's experienced this, right? So we all know him. He grew up. He wasn't. This is the dude that was kind of on the periphery. He had a couple of homies that were black, but he was still kind of on the periphery. But he is at the slang. He knew the slang. I'm 90s era, so we're talking about he wore Dickies. He wore maybe he threw some Carhartt stuff in there, but it was kind of Dickies. He had slang. He listened to the music. Hung out at some of the parties and stuff. He seemed cool. And then he gets older. And then you re-encounter him on social media. And you realize, wow, this dude's he's kind of morphed into this right winger. And I don't have an issue with it. Like, my issue is the combative right wingers that will talk to you fucking crazy. And that's what the specific person I was dealing with kind of was, because all the black people that went to high school with them was on the face like, yo, man, you bugging, bro. Like, you need to relax. And bro was just popping off like full blown right wing memes that came from Stormfront, that had just been repurposed through the years. Because that's kind of what MAGA is. Like, they adopt like memes and statistics and like crime statistics and all that other stuff from Storefront, and then it's been mainstreamed enough that they've sanitized it. But I know where this stuff came from. And for those that don't know, Storefront was the white nationalist site of record when the internet first started. And so a lot of the stuff that you see, a lot of the really anti-black, hardcore MAGA memes, a lot of them have their origins over in that part of the internet. The racist part of the internet, and as we got a little bit older, the racist part of Reddit, because those that don't know, Reddit used to be really bad with it. 4chan, 8chan, where a lot of the white nationalists kind of hung out and swapped memes. A lot of those memes started popping up on the white homies page, and would be in chats and stuff, like in conversation threads. And when the black folks that kind of went to school with homie were checking him on it, he was really flippant. Like, he was talking crazy, talking to us like we were stupid. And it's really kind of a unique phenomenon. I don't know where that happens, where you've been surrounded by black folks and we've kind of given you, I hate saying we invited you to the picnic. It's just so corny. It is. But we've kind of allowed you in our spaces and consider you cool enough to have more than surface level conversations about cultural stuff. And you just are Mr. Hardline MAGA. And it always manifests as, well, I just hate all politicians, but I especially hate them. I especially hate the ones that, I especially hate the libs. Like, it always comes down to that. I'm more pragmatic in my politics, right? Like, I believe in whatever can benefit, because I understand that when we're talking about marginalized people, most people don't understand the dynamics of how human nature is kind of set up. Historically in this country, as long as you can paint a black face on something, you can get a lot of moderates to turn against it. And it's been historic, and it was actually part of campaign strategies. And so, as long as you can paint a black face on something, people will go against their self-interest. They'll cut off their nose to spite their face. And so what happens is, um, because the reality is, if something benefits marginalized people, it's going to benefit your mainstream of America. It's going to benefit working class people in general. The biggest trick the devil ever played on folks was it taught working class white folks that they are at odds with all the other working class folks. Like the most black folks are working class. And that's always been my issue with the burners and the Bernies and stuff like that. Most black folks are working class. Like that is one of the biggest populations of working class people in this country. But they always present things that would benefit us as narrowly just to benefit our community, when pretty much every single time there's been legislation that is supposed to benefit black working class folks, it's always gone somewhere else. Just like affirmative action generally benefited white women, benefited everybody else but black folks in most cases. Not all cases, but in most cases. And so one of the things that was really interesting is how the there are working class folks and union folks. Like I know white folks in unions that are on the right side, like vote on the right side of the ticket. And it's like, do you understand the person that you voted for wants to outlaw your union? No, they don't. Yes, they do. Look at the voting record. So anyway, if you help marginalized people, you help pretty much everybody else in this country, the majority of people. But they've color coded it so that helping marginalized people looks like narrowly helping black folks, and people are against it. Again, I'm just freestyling up here, man. This is just my opinion, but that's kind of what I've seen as a sociology major and kind of a history of a student of history. And so that's the trap he fell into. A white working class dude, grew up white working class, grew up around black folks, and now he's kind of done that white working class pivot into MAGA politic. And regardless of how y'all frame it, and regardless of what you think, one of the things is I started out as a journalism major. And so I take copious amounts of notes about stuff. And Long Boxing While Black, before it took podcast form, it was a website that I ran, and I actually wrote articles that I researched and stuff. And one of the things I was researching when I was really in depth and kind of got chased off of the internet by this was I was looking at the correlation between Gamergate, MAGA, and the rise of the alt-right. And I had all kinds of notes and I was tracking all this stuff. This is about 2015. And so I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm a trained journalism student. So I know how to cite sources. I know how to do all that stuff that comes along with and double and triple check. And I had a binder full of stuff before I encountered racist trolls and started getting death threats for the stuff I was posting. And I ended up leaving a lot of Long Boxing While Black behind because of all the stuff it brought with it. But there's a correlation between alt-right, white nationalism, the MAGA movement. These things exist because of one another. Okay. And so while not all MAGAs are white supremacists, a lot of white supremacists are MAGA. And that just comes from, it's not an observation. It's not an opinion or anything. It's literally how it was birthed. It's literally how that movement was birthed. It was birthed in the white nationalist corners of the internet. Hyper nationalism, hyper anti-immigrant sentiment, but then also it was also used as a Trojan horse to just bang on everybody that's not white or American. And even white American Protestant, that's kind of where the dividing line was. But the nature of fascism is it's a funnel that gets narrower as you move up. And so they start peeling off different identities as you start moving up towards the ideal or the most desired group out there. I'm not gonna get that deep. I'm not gonna get that deep on y'all, but that's what it is. And so um I know that these things are tied together because I've actually done the research. I've actually gone through the internet troves. I've actually done a lot of this stuff because I was going to write a big article about it. And that's when the death threat started rolling. And then I shelved it. And I'm not going to go back to it because I don't know if I want to go back to that place because this is right before my mom died and a couple of other really I was getting death threats and then my mom died like a month later. And so I kind of drifted off of that and said, I'm not going to touch this again. But it was a powder keg because I was getting some pretty direct stuff, like, people sending me my address and all kinds of other crazy stuff because I started digging into it and started speaking to it. So anyway, that's that. All those tweets have been deleted. I almost shut down my Twitter account. I disappeared for a while behind that off those sites. But I'm saying all that to say this. There's a strong white nationalist element that the MAGA movement was born out of. It's a hyper nationalist thing, and so people don't understand that jingoism and hyper nationalism. That's not what y'all consider patriotism. Y'all have kind of masked it as that, but that's not necessarily really what that is. It's a different thing. It's anti-immigrant sentiment, and then when you purge the country of immigrants and you start looking for the next groups to kind of target, because that's how fascism works. So I'm saying all that to say this. White working class kind of fell, a lot of white working class folks have fell under the sway, and a lot of it has to do with economic conditions and things like that and general hopelessness, because when there are scant resources or where people feel like there are fewer resources, money's not coming in, pay's getting weird. That's when you start seeing a lot of these groups where it's really born out of a sense of not having to compete with other groups for resources. So anyway, let me get back to this because it was a rant here. So the white dude from high school hung out with black folks, and now it's MAGA. That's what we're talking about. He grows up and he starts leaning MAGA, starts parroting some really anti-black. They call it anti-woke. It's kind of it's not necessarily anti-woke. It's just anti-tolerant stuff. It's dressed under like moral arguments or whatnot, but growing up, dude wasn't on that, and they always have this weird anti-black tinge, and every conversation turns really condescending, where if you are a black person telling him, hey, that's not how this works, or this is what my experience is, you're brainwashed and you're a sheep. And in his world, he's the wolf, even though the memes that he's quoting at you and using at you, he doesn't know that those are just things that have been circulating on the racist part of the internet since the early 90s. And so he starts parroting all this stuff at you, and then uses the passive shield. Me, man, we was cool and all this other stuff, but it's like, yeah, I thought I did, but I guess I don't. And so my falling out happened right after the election because I'm like, hey, bro, like all this shit, yeah, whatever, man. I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna do with my, because I'm a business owner, and so I have insurance that I carry. I'm worried about whether we're gonna be able to insure the kids and be able to maintain as a business owner. Like I had some other structural things, and I finally just said, yeah, right over. You know what? It seems like this black stuff hanging out with black folks was really kind of a phase for you, because on your page all you do is sit around and argue with black folks all day long. You sit down and argue with us all day long, and you think we're still cool with you, and we just sitting there looking at you like, oh, they got another one. The MAGA's got another one. And so it doesn't necessarily bother me or sting, but it is kind of a revealing thing. I've always said clarity is a gift, and that was it's been kind of the theme the entire year. It does make you wonder if we were just an aesthetic for him, a costume that he could slip on. His access point to be exposed to a culture that he normally wouldn't be exposed to. But if he grew up around the way, then he was kind of surrounded by it. And you understand that these allies ain't loyal, because a lot of times, as soon you could always test it out, as soon as it looks like there's going to be competition for resources, that allyship goes away. So anyway, that's one of my serious conversations. Want to lighten it up a little bit, but not really. So I happen to be kind of scrolling through the internet. Um, and I've been really into it because the Clip's new album is absolute fire. Like it's heat. Like I can't stop listening to the Clip's new album. Um, and I was kind of invested in, more fascinated by the Drake and Kendrick thing, just because of how leveraging the internet, leveraging the fact that YouTube is a search engine, and if you can trend on YouTube, you can dominate Google, and how Kendrick kind of figured it out and allowed the streamers to react to his songs in real time, and that boosted his numbers. And so what I found is, um, by following this, I'm realizing that there's a lot of hip hop tourism going on. What that means is you were introduced to hip hop via Drake or via mainstream hip hop artists. You came in with Macklemore. Like that's how you started. That's how you got into hip hop. Was like Drake or Macklemore or whoever else. Okay. And so I just kind of happened to be scrolling through. And so I'm saying this as I saw a couple of clips of XQC ranting about Anthony Fantano's review of the Clips album. And he mentioned something about lyrics don't matter in hip hop, and then tried to give why it doesn't matter and stuff like that, and said, if you want lyrics, you should read a book. It'd be in the wrong place, y'all. Here's the thing that's frustrating. So you have somebody who has a massive platform. He's gotten some attention from some weirdo rappers out there, like, the ones that are kind of always chasing the streamers, always up the streamers' ass and stuff like that. And so for whatever reason, dude has kind of decided that he is somebody that should be speaking on a culture that he is really kind of a tourist to. That's what my take is on it. Like, I don't give a damn. And it's not, because I grew up with white dudes that are hip hop heads just like I am. And they kind of feel the same way about dudes like SQC and what was the other one? Aiden Ross, who really ain't into hip hop like that. They're into the aesthetic and the vibe of the music, but they ain't really into the culture side of it. And when I say they ain't into the culture, they're aligned with elements of it that represent the most mainstream and shallow aspects of the culture. And hip hop is a culture, like it has four elements and all the other stuff. I'm not getting into that. If it needs to be explained to you, what is understood needs to be explained. I ain't breaking all that down to you. But they have a surface level embrace of it. So if you ask them to name classic albums, they're probably going to be able to name off classic albums that came out in the last like 5 years. And for a lot of like tourists and a lot of people who have these pervasive hip hop opinions, it either starts and begins with Young Money, which is a red flag to me. So that means it either starts with Wayne, either it starts with Drake, or it starts with Nicki Minaj. And then that's as deep as the understanding of hip hop goes. And they parachute in with loud opinions, but there's no real depth or real understanding. And then they say shit like, lyrics don't matter in hip hop. If you want lyrics, go read a book. Not understanding that used to be the entire basis of emceeing. How do I put my words together? There's a whole nother stream in here about the dumbing down of hip hop in general. Because back in the days, the rappers were articulate. They were educated. E40 is an educated dude when you listen to him talk. Cats that love the spoken word. I know MCs that used to read dictionary to learn new words so that they can put them together. Okay. And so there was always an element of artistry in how you put your bars together. And for somebody to say it doesn't matter, that shows me that you don't really have an opinion that matters. But you got these big, huge mega platforms where they can talk it, and it's kind of contributing to this brain rot kind of culture in hip hop. And there's always been there's always been some element of, I hate to say degeneracy, but there's always been the element of we're just vibing and having fun versus we're into the lyrical content versus we want the stories and stuff and we want it all put together. Like there's always been the conflict between the artistic side of hip hop versus the commercial side of hip hop. That's always existed. But we're starting to see a shift where people are actually starting to pay attention to lyrics again and they actually care about it. And he is showing that fact that he's a tourist because it chafes against him that somebody's actually paying attention to what's being said and how the words are being put together. And these streamers go on places like Twitch and then YouTube gas them up. Then they get co-signed by the same artists that are producing the same shallow shit, the same reductive BS. Because I'm not big into, oh, well, all the clips do is rhyme about drugs. Yeah, it's kind of what it is. But I like the way that they put the words together. There's some thought behind it. I can listen to Biggie, I can listen to Jay, I can listen to artists that put their stuff together and that they took some time with those rhymes. Okay. It bothers me because hip hop's not just vibes and beats. There's a history of wordplay, storytelling mixed in with, the more gritty kind of stuff and mixed in with the celebration of making it. There's so many different elements that make the art form, make the art of rhyming the art of rhyming. And I know I'm dealing with a tourist when somebody starts talking about such and such out rapped somebody. Every time somebody says out rapped, I just want to swing on somebody. All right. Outsiders tend to flatten it down. They try to flatten hip hop down to break it down to something that they can comprehend. And I feel like it might have been the same thing that happened with jazz and the blues. Because when we talk to older heads who are really into the jazz and blues scene, they said you get a lot of tourism of people who didn't understand what was actually happening when they're sitting there listening to Diz or Thelonious Monk. They just had a surface level understanding of what was popular. When they're listening to Coltrane or Miles Davis, they can't really grasp the deeper meanings of what's being said and the way the instruments in jazz were being used to mimic voices and tell stories. They can't really adjust to it. And so they have a hard time conceptualizing it. I'll do an entire stream about hip hop. I can talk about this stuff all day long. That was my beat when I did college radio. That's why I got into journalism, to write about hip hop and be a hip hop journalist. That's why I started out as a journalism major. I'm not here to expose XQC or even start anything. The dude probably don't even know what I know he doesn't care that I exist. I really don't care about that stuff. But it's the pattern. Okay. I don't mind tourism. I don't mind hip hop tourism. People that aren't really part of the culture or don't really spend any time in it or don't have much of a history with it. I don't mind that. I think it's necessary to the growth of it. You're always going to need a mainstream audience. But when the mainstream audience starts acting like they are the experts to dictate what direction the culture goes, that's when I have an issue. Okay. And we do need to gatekeep a little bit. We got to gatekeep and be careful about who we allow to become the loudest voices about it. Okay. Last thing. So I'm doing this the day after, as you can see up in the corner here. Up here. No, you can't see it because I'm pointing at the screen. Malcolm Jamal Warner. He passed. And it was shocking. Like, you never really ever expect somebody's passing. And I don't know him personally. I've been following him on social media. He seems like a really cool guy. And it's tough. I know he has a young daughter. As a father, that's where my heart breaks because he was just getting to enjoy his kid's childhood. And for that young lady to be robbed of that is heartbreaking. Yes, it is. And so, as shocking as it was, because I'm also dealing with, because it hits harder because I'm already dealing with the loss of a loved one recently. But to see somebody experience, Somebody who was so full of life. There weren't any illness, or it was just a sudden loss of life. It hits in the gut. I didn't even know him personally, but it does force you to kind of reflect. It forced me to kind of reflect on my own mortality and my presence as a father and my role, what I believe in my role as a father is. And it really started making me think, if something happened to me tomorrow, what lessons will my kids carry forth? Not just life lessons, bro. Like what are my aspirations for them? Because I know that they're going to have their own dreams, but my aspirations for my kids are for them to live their life however they want to, in whatever means they want to the fullest, embracing every aspect of who they are. Um, you know, my son's into music, my daughter is into theater and art, and I want them to pursue it so much. I want them to throw their arms around it and lean into it and chase every opportunity that they can to embrace the things that they're interested in. I want them to explore as many different things as they're interested in without feeling encumbered by this world, because this world a lot of times um, it tries to abridge the childhood of little black kids, and it tries to force them into being more mature and more of an adult than they're ready to be. I want them to enjoy this time where they have the flexibility to participate in things that give them energy and give them light. You know, I want them to stay curious. I want them to stay learning, but I want them to pursue every interest that they can imagine. And I had to tell them, I told my daughter that earlier today without going into the whole passing. I just want her, and I've already talked to my son about this too. I want them to pursue everything that interests them while they have the ability to pursue it. That's the lesson I want my kids to carry forward. Be who you are unapologetically. Like what you like, enjoy what you enjoy. And don't let people dictate what you should be in this world. There's too many people that are going to try to put you in a box. I want them to stay curious. I don't want them just to make their life decisions based on, oh, is this going to pay? Is this a lucrative career or not? I want them to be in a position creatively, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to build for them. Um, it's taken a long time, and I'm still working on it. But I want to create a place where they have the resources to pursue what their dreams are without fear. Okay. So, how I'm trying to do this is I never miss a moment to tell my kids I love them. Not one time. My sons and daughters still come in and they say prayers and stuff, and we have a nighttime routine and stuff with them. Um, we aren't shy about showing affection in this house. Okay. Um, as a father, that's what I want to show them. I want them to see a dad who may not always be perfect, but who's trying his best to elevate them and catapult them into the kind of life that they want to live unapologetically. Okay. And I'm doing it by, showing up consistently as I can, trying to be as present as I can. It's hard with ADHD. I promise you, it's really hard with ADHD to always be as present as I want to with my family. Um, and with me trying to figure out when I can go get tested for autism too, because sometimes I do need, like, I get overwhelmed and I need my quiet. I do. Otherwise, I feel like I'm gonna lose my mind. Um, but anyway, that's besides the point. Rest in power, Malcolm. I don't know what else to say. watching, because it's a parasocial relationship. You see somebody growing up on TV or whatnot, and you identify with that character. Um, I was really invested in everything after the Cosby Show, because, like I said, I've been following dude for a while on social media or whatnot, and seeing the fact that he was not only an actor but a director and a musician, and he was, every time you see him, it's a positive ray of light and talking some good into the world. It's really always a loss when you see somebody, when the world loses somebody like that, whether they're famous or not. So that's all I got, y'all. I got to get around and go get my kids. They're at band camp, and so I got to go pick them up. So I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sitting there listening to me rant about One Piece and hip hop and fatherhood and politics. That's kind of the vibe of the Tuesday night live stream. It can go anywhere. Whatever tickles my fancy that night or that day, I'm probably going to talk about it. Next week, hopefully, I'll have some more comic books to kind of chop it up about. I think I still do want to do. I thought there'd be more ninjas, and I'm gonna tell you the story behind that next week, possibly where the idea from that came from. Before I actually do the video essay, it kind of explained what ninjas meant back in the days. And if you grew up in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, I'm talking about before Ninja Turtles. If you grew up in the Blockbuster video era, everybody knows that there was a whole section of ninja movies, like a whole section of ninja movies. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because I have an interesting story I'm going to share with y'all next week. So I do appreciate y'all's time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. If you guys got anything or got any things you want me to talk about on the stream, pop in. Like it's a more fun experience when y'all jump in and have the conversation. So I'm gonna holler at y'all later. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.